Jackie, of course, you take it away.
Thank you very much. Our guest this week on Standup Memories with Professor Peter Bales and me, Jackie Martling, is the illustrious Rory Rosegarten from the Conversation Company Limited, a manager par extraordinaire. And we were talking last week about Ray Romano, and I want to say one last thing about him.
Yes.
I went to see Kevin James and Ray Romano. I think I was in Las Vegas, maybe Atlantic City.
It was the Mirage.
But somebody hooked me up, and we went to see the show. It was spectacular. And I was in the green room afterwards, and Ray just casually said, "Hey, did you see that Beatles show live?" And I said, "No, And he just picked up the phone. He said, "There's 2 tickets waiting for you."
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean,
I'm telling you, I don't want to sound like
no.
He's a great guy. He really is.
If he doesn't have a big head already,
Ray Romano, the best.
Yeah, the best.
So
Now,
Rory is before you go into the whole management thing and get serious, Rory is a huge baseball fan. I could tell you every Yankee in the 50s. I can tell you all. In fact, a rich friend of mine took me to a Yankee game, and we were sitting there in a really good box, and I said, "When did Bob Turley become Asian?" Because number 19 was pitching,
Right.
but Bob Turley Bullet Bob was 1958, and it's 19 whatever. So, but Rory's a big baseball fan, and he took me to Citi Field.
Citi Field?
Took me to Citi Field,
yeah.
and we like baseball, and thinking, wow, baseball season is upon us. This is a great time to do these. But of course, this show isn't going to air probably until Thanksgiving, but that doesn't matter.
It's all right.
And I actually know these off the top of my head, but I figured it's easier if I just read them. A friend of mine, who's no longer with us, was a videographer, a producer, and he did the video for Yogi Berra's web page, and I guess they have a little video for each guy at the Cooperstown Baseball Hall of Fame. So he did both of those little videos for Yogi, and in the course of working with Yogi did a couple of Yogis, but not the ones that you hear.
Right.
Nobody goes there, it's too crowded. The ones that you've heard time immemorial. Some of these at the end were very rare ones, so I'm not sure. But he actually said 3 of them to this guy, and I've never forgotten. This was 15 years ago, because he said he couldn't believe that Yogi did a Yogi, So this is what he said. They're hanging out and they're working on things. Hank Bauer played 14 seasons. I don't know how he did it. He smoked like a fish, which is just classic.
that's good.
You know who was really good? Cher. Cher was great in Moonstruck. I think she got the Golden Glove for that.
Yes, good.
In the late innings of Don's perfect game, Yankee Stadium was as quiet as a pin. They don't
Love
make
it.
sense, but you know exactly what he's saying. And then Mickey's great because he hits both ways. He's amphibious. Okay.
I love it.
And then at testimonial dinner, he said, "I want to thank everybody that made tonight necessary." To Billy Martin, who was freaking out, he had locked his keys in his car. "No big deal, just call a blacksmith." I can sum up baseball in one word: you never know. And this is what Billy Martin said, that Yogi was 21 before he learned how to wave goodbye. And then there was one Casey Stengel. Casey Stengel said to the guys, "Everybody line up alphabetically according to your height."
I love it. I love it.
Those are just,
You know,
they're so Americana.
I own 2 things of his. I own his Social Security card.
You do?
Yogi?
Yes, I own.
Oh, that's...
And when Mickey Mantle hit the 500th home run, I have the telegram that Yogi sent to Mickey Mantle.
Ah.
The actual telegram.
That's so
Wow.
funny.
Yeah.
Those are collector's items.
Do you know, in the run of the Stern Show, I was only responsible for 2 guests, and one of them was Mickey Mantle, because my friend Larry, I'll think of his last name on the way home, was one of the part owners of Mickey Mantle's restaurant.
Yeah.
And Mickey had written a book, and he was
Right.
promoting his book, and he called me up and said, Jackie.
The Mick was the book.
Yeah, I don't
It's called
know.
The Mick.
He said, do you want Mickey Mantle on the Stern Show? You think they'd take him? I'm like, are you kidding?
Yeah.
So I told Gary, and Gary said, hey, yeah, we'll make him a mystery guest, you know. So we're sitting there, and this has got to be on YouTube or Google or something, because it turns out almost everything that happened on, although this puts me in a good light, so it might not be in there. But everybody put on the blindfolds, and guys, okay, mystery guest, the city boss, you know. And Howard must have asked 2 questions, right? And after 2 questions, or maybe 3 questions, he goes, you're not going to tell me Mickey Mantle's sitting here. And he says, yep, that's who it is. And Howard takes off the thing, and he's just as flabbergasted. He goes, how the hell did we get Mickey Mantle? And Gary, he was so reticent. He was like, I don't know how to tell you, Howard, but Jackie got him. which was so, and I didn't know Mickey Mantle from Adam, you know, it was a connection.
Oh, Mickey, my idol growing up.
Oh God, you know, he's sitting there like, you know, whoa, you know, I mean, that's.
Who became a human being when Jim Bouton's Ball 4 came out.
Yep.
And I liked Mickey more, and I liked baseball more after that book, when you got to know.
Because he became a person.
He became a person. Absolutely.
It was great fun.
Oh,
Baseball and Valentine.
you can't beat it.
That's one of the things we didn't touch. Rory is a collector and has Henny Youngman's violin.
Yes.
And for you younger folks,
You have Henny Youngman's
Henny
violin?
Youngman was a fantastic comedian from forever ago.
Forever ago.
Who eventually made it, to the Carson Show and all that. Even though he was very old, he was still around, and he had a violin, and he'd play a note, and then tell a couple of jokes,
Take
and
My
then I'd go to
Wife, Please.
Take My Wife, Please. He was the ultimate one-liner comedian.
And he just was spectacular. And he used to, in the Friars Club, he used to have them page him.
Right. And he never paid a check. Never paid a check.
I love it.
And you know what's so funny? Eating with Henny, the first time I ever ate at the Friars Club was with Henny Youngman, because he found out about 516-922 wine. He didn't know I didn't make money. And he had a grandson that was all screwed up on drugs.
Larry.
And he thought, wow, maybe he could get him into that, some kind of thing to make money. Henny already did dial-a-joke, but he found out I had one, so he invited me to lunch at the Friars Club. And Larry wound up not being with us anymore. But at some point, me and his grandson Larry and Mark Simone and David Copperfield, who had to go back to David Heenan when another David Copperfield got famous, I was hosting.
No, so it was David Heenan, the comedian.
Yes.
Not David Copperfield.
No,
the
David
magician.
Heenan, the comedian, but he
Right.
was David Copperfield when I knew him.
Right.
But then David Copperfield became,
Right.
But they used to come and see me at the other end, so I knew. And was his grandson or his nephew?
I think it was his nephew.
Yeah, maybe his nephew. But so of course I couldn't do anything. I said I don't make anything with my thing. But every time he ate, he put his napkin here and had this big ugly napkin. And Rodney did the same thing. And I remember thinking, what are they, slobs? And to this day, every time I eat, I walk away with food on my front, and I can't remember to put the stupid. I'm like, of course they knew what they were doing. Every shirt I had was destroyed, Jesus.
When he was describing Henny Youngman, at first, you could have been describing a very young Jack Benny with the violin, a little bit, and a joke. What
Same
goes
thing.
around comes around,
Same
isn't it?
thing.
Isn't it incredible?
You know what I think is so funny? When you're watching TV as a kid or whatever, every comedian is the same size.
Yes.
Every comedian is
Yes.
this big.
Yes.
Everybody on TV is this big. And then you see Warner Wolf, and he's this
Tiny.
big, this big. But then you go to Friars Club, and Henny Youngman is 6'6".
Giant.
He's
Yeah.
huge, but they're all the same
Yes,
size.
yes.
That
The
just
great equalizer.
Just so
Yeah.
funny. Just
I love
very
it.
funny.
I love it. So everybody out there watching, trying to figure out what a comedy manager is. There it is, right there.
So
and
sad.
why
Isn't it
it's
sad?
so, but
So
why it's so
sad.
critical to the business of comedy, the industry of comedy, the art of comedy. You need to understand that it's more than just the comedian. And Rory, I want to ask you this: you've had a lot of fun, and it's
I
clear.
have, yeah.
But sometimes aren't the managers the ones who have to make the tough statements, make the tough negotiations? And I wanted to ask you, and I bet you're too nice, you're not going to use any names, but have there probably been many times when comedians have absolutely wanted to make you pull your hair out?
You know, it's a good point.
Because you're the buffer.
But I haven't had a lot of.
Yeah,
I'm very particular about the people I work with.
right.
They have to be good people.
You're already vetted the situation.
Yeah, I don't want to be a Pollyanna about it, but the reality is, it's hard enough as it is. I don't need that. You know what I
Right,
mean?
right,
I
right.
don't need a guy who, just because he's a jerk. You know, it's just, it's not worth it. There's so much downtime and so much time creatively. I don't want to clean up after this elephant in the circus. That's
Yes,
not the job I
gotcha.
want. I don't want to do that for a living, and it's not fun. My attitude has always been, I want to have fun. There are moments that are not fun, of course, but generally fun. If you're working with good people, inherently good people, it goes forever. I mean, I've been Brian Regan's manager,
Yes.
Ray Romano's manager, 40 years, 39 years. You know, it's like,
Brian Regan, tremendous comedian, what a writer, out there performing everywhere today. Just for those of you
yeah,
who,
and but he plays theaters,
Yes.
arenas. I mean, he does great. We just did a special for Netflix. He's unbelievable, and I always laugh. He's too nice for show business. He shouldn't be in show business.
well, I got to tell you, when I ask,
He was always the nicest.
Always the nicest guy.
When I asked
when
him-
he was cooking steaks at the comic
absolutely,
shop.
the comic
In
shop,
Florida.
that's in Florida.
Yeah.
When I ask new young comedians today who makes you laugh, Brian Regan is
Yeah.
on the tip of their tongue.
Yeah.
The amazing writing that he does.
And there's something else about him that blows me away. I understand he's doing this a long time. We're together 39 years, right? So every 18 months he has a new act. A new act. The guy does not repeat a joke. It's incredible.
That's crazy.
It's incredible.
That
He's
is-
very prolific. He takes it very seriously. And it's really funny. It's very user-friendly. And audiences love it. We find that his crowds have parents who bring their kids. So he crosses over
Yep.
where there's something there for everybody, which is very rare. It's very rare. And he's really good at what he does. And the audiences love it.
That's so long. That's a lot of, that's decades. You know,
Decades.
that's crazy.
Decades. And he loves comedy. He's also another one who takes it very seriously, and we spend a lot of time going over stuff and talking, but the material itself, he writes every word,
Yep.
every joke, it's his. I don't have one that I know of, and I know. I don't have one client who buys a joke, not one. They write their own stuff. They craft their own stuff. They put it together. They take out an and or a the. The one thing that people don't seem to understand, it's almost like I can equate it to a magician in a way. I think audiences don't understand how hard a comedian has to work and how much goes into the act to make
Because
it
it's
look
a comic's job to make it look like
correct.
making
And-
it up as they go along,
Correct,
which a
correct.
lot of people still think.
But that's part of it.
That's
That's
part of it.
great because for the audience, you know, a guy worked all week and his wife worked all week or whatever, took care of the kids. They want to go and have a great time. And
Yes.
it's supposed to be very easy, and
They don't want to know the
it's
nuts and the bolts.
Yes. But the thing that comedians don't get credit for, they work really hard. It's very, very, very hard to be a good comedian. Really hard. And it takes a very special person, not only who can execute it and make it happen, but also to have that skill and that ability. You can't learn that. You can't learn that. You have to start out with that. You know?
I hope everybody watching
That-
and listening heard that.
But that's
Thank you for saying
that
that.
not true?
It's
But
true.
that's the chicken or the egg. It's got to be a certain amount of talent, a certain amount of drive, and a certain amount of desire, and there's all different. You know, it's got to be somewhat learned. You know what I mean? Like, it's
Well, look, you learn
it's
the
a
basics.
real debatable
Of course.
thing.
No, you learn the basics, right? You know, you always know how to make the color blue. You always know what to mix. But my dad was a painter, a really good painter. And you could go to painting school, but you couldn't. I could never do what he can do. There is a certain element. It's a gift, and that's
They
what
can give you the
comedy is.
tools.
They can give you the tools. They can teach you the best box to have, the best tools in the box, but using them and the deftness to go around things. You can't learn that. And I couldn't do that as a comedian.
Yes.
That's what it was. I didn't have that.
But there isn't a single comedian who can do what you do either.
Right. All right. So people can.
Right.
But I will say, though, I'm saying it again. People don't realize how hard comedians work and how lonely it is.
Yes.
How much, you make all the jokes about the guy in front of the mirror. There's not a comedian that any of us know who haven't stood in the bathroom
Yep.
with a towel around their waist, getting out of the shower, trying a bit in the mirror, making a face, looking left, looking right. It's so complicated to get it right, to make it look like it's not complicated.
Yeah, I do that. I don't even need the shower. I just get naked. and
I just look at the
in
bottom
there.
half.
Oh,
Don't you think?
that'll make you laugh. That's
But
for sure.
but people, they don't want to know the
No,
nuts and bolts. They
no.
don't want to think of, wow, that guy must have worked so hard
Correct.
to do that.
Correct.
You know.
But
Or-
Rory just put something into words. I've struggled to say what you just said. He used artists as an example. Yes, you can teach the nuts and bolts. Yes, you can teach the
Yes.
mechanics. We maybe, as comedians, call it a funny bone or just a funny
Right.
in your gut.
Right.
And that is what you can't teach.
But comedians have I always joke that being a comedian, you're standing there basically naked.
Yeah.
You're naked, and you're in one. You don't play off someone else. You're by yourself.
Right.
So the audience has just paid a husband and a wife, or a guy and a girl are there, or whatever couple is there. They paid cover charge, the 2-drink minimum. They ordered chicken wings. The babysitter is at home. They drove.
Yeah.
And they're standing and saying, okay, hotshot, make me laugh.
Yep.
It's a big difference to make your friends and family laugh at a dinner versus an audience that's paid money to be
and
there.
gone through whatever they had
Yes.
to do.
Yes, and you got to be good.
Did everybody hear that? I couldn't have said it better. There's a Grand Canyon between making your friends and family laugh at the diner and people who paid a cover charge and it's their weekend and come on, I got to work on Monday.
That's
I
right.
want to relax.
That's
You know,
right. That's a big calling too.
Yes.
That's a big calling because it's gutsy to say, I'm worth all those
Yes.
things. That's really.
You know, there was a
Absolutely.
quote from Henny Youngman that I read a billion years ago, and he obviously was being really facetious, but he said the definition of a comedian is a guy who made his uncle laugh at a family reunion and thought he should become a comedian.
Yeah.
But,
He's right.
you know,
It's right.
there's so many people, you got to meet my friend Eddie, he's the funniest guy in the world, and then you meet,
Well, one of the, it's funny, comedy has changed so much, and now with the internet, one of my new clients is Anthony Rodia, who is great, and he just last weekend, 2 weekends ago, sold out the Paramount in Huntington twice. They paid from, they hired him to do one show and it sold out, and they added a second show and it sold out. He didn't go through the normal channels. He took it right to the people through the internet and doing pre-recorded bits with these characters that he has made famous, basically. And so the business is changing also. There's no middleman anymore. You can take it right to the people. Look, every schmuck can be to do a podcast. You go for $99 and you buy the equipment,
and
you're
they
on
are.
the air. You're on the air.
But everything changes so much because, like Burns and Allen did the same 7 minutes for 15 years.
That's correct.
And all of a sudden, you're on radio.
Correct.
Forget television. You're on radio.
But I would argue it's hard to do a good podcast.
Yes, and it's hard to do it.
How would you know?
consistently.
I set you up for that.
I know.
It's hard to do it consistently.
Yes.
Also, that's the other thing. When clients of mine are debating about doing a podcast, I want them to do one a week.
Right.
Because you can't be funny 5 days a week. Like I was always enamored with you and the Howard Stern show, because that's an enormous amount of work to be entertaining every day for 4 or 5 hours.
In retrospect, it was so much more of a phenomenon than we even knew. But he absolutely was and is the phenomenon.
Of course.
But with the spices, without the spices,
agreed.
That's a whole.
But the way you created that, I don't know that you'll ever see that again. And podcasts, they always think podcasts should be an hour. Well, no, it shouldn't be an hour.
That's a lot.
But I have a theory about that. Can I tell you my theory?
No, you're going to tell us
next week?
your theory next week.
Okay.
This is our guest, Rory Rosegarten, who has joined the ranks of John Glenn.
Wow.
From Long Island, a journalist and photographer,
historian,
yeah,
and
he's a good guy too.
playwright. He was a
Yeah.
great guest. And Danny McKenna,
Danny McKenna.
the chief cook and bottle washer at Rascals Comedy Club for 15 years. And they were both great guests. They were no Rory Rosegarten, but he'll join us again next week on What's Your Show?
Our show is, and Rory is coming back with a theory, and we should all listen. Our show is Standup Memories
With Professor Peter Bales.
and Jackie Martling. Hey, a new episode of Standup Memories every Wednesday.
How exciting is that?
Starring me, Peter Bales, and right here, Jackie the Joke Man Martling.
Please follow us on social media. Search it out. What is it? MeSpace?
MySpace,
Your space?
TikTok, Instagram, Facebook.
Doodah, doodah.